I'm joined by a man named Mark, a fellow bearded man. Hello, Mark.
Hey, how you doing? Great to be with you.
Yes. Now, incidentally, we met recently at Adventure Plus in Oxfordshire. You were there with Urban Saints, which is one of your hats, but that's not the hat we're actually wanting to talk about today, because we wanted to talk a bit more about the Additional Needs Alliance.
Absolutely, and the Additional Needs Alliance is such a great, vibrant place to connect with, and yeah, it's really exciting to be able to share a bit of that with you today.
So we will do an interview another time, I'm sure, about Urban States, but let's just stick with the Additional Needs Alliance for now. Just tell us a little bit. If people haven't heard of that, they can probably work out something of what it's about, because the name is actually very helpful. It's about people with additional needs, we assume, and you've got some sort of collection of people to do with additional needs. But just give us a better than that overview from your perspective about what it is.
Brilliant. Well, so the Additional Needs Alliance has been going now for about 12 years. It started off at a children's and families conference that myself and my co-founder Kay Morgan Gurr were at, and we were running some seminar sessions for children's and families workers about how to support children and young people with additional needs. For those of you that have not come across the term additional needs, it's what we use increasingly now instead of special needs, and it incorporates children with disabilities, health conditions, a range of reasons why they need extra support and help. And this group of people that we were running these seminar sessions for at the conference 12 years ago, at the end of the conference said, hey, it would be great to continue the conversation. How can we do that? What is there out there that we can connect into? And Kay and I looked at each other and we thought, well, there isn't anything really. Maybe we should make something. So we put together the Additional Needs Alliance, and it's a collective of children's, youth, families workers, parents, carers, church leaders, teachers, practitioners, folk from all different backgrounds who journey with and support children, young people, maybe young adults too, with additional needs. And from that starting point of perhaps 30 people that were at that conference 12 years ago, we're homing in on 4,000 people now that connect in on a regular basis with the Additional Needs Alliance. There's a Facebook group. We've got a website where people can come and find information and support. And it's a journey that we do together, and a place where folk can ask questions and get answers, share resources, just be in a community with other people of a like mind, and to not feel like they're the only ones out there that are supporting a child or young person with additional needs. So it's a great place for folk to come together and share that journey together.
It can feel quite lonely, regardless of our sphere of life, where whether we've got children who outwardly appear completely healthy. Of course, then you've got issues perhaps with their brains, that maybe brain damage or some sort of mental struggle. We've got depression and mental health, and these things invariably are quite hidden from I guess a surface glance. We can see someone and think, well, they look okay. What's the problem? Classically, you see a disabled bay outside a supermarket. Somebody gets out of the car and they're not in a wheelchair. They haven't got crutches or a stick, and you're thinking, they're liars. Why? They're not disabled. Well, possibly they're not. The passenger might be, or they might be having a good day. And of course, it's quite hard from a snapshot to really get an understanding of someone's life. But that can really, I suppose, feed into that feeling of ostracized, of being alone. No one knows what I'm going through, which is why it's important to have people who can say, do you know, I struggle with that too.
Absolutely, and for those people that do communicate that, to be heard, and for folk to be there that say, hey, you know what, I get it, because I know what that's like too, or I've got a child who's in that situation, or just that there's empathy and understanding there that folk can find. And you're absolutely right that there are a huge range of different elements to what we bundle together as additional needs, and that can include people with a physical disability, which can be more obvious to see, but it can include lots of those hidden disabilities, differences, diversities that we've started talking about as well, and from a children's, youth, families context as well, that broadens out to their family as a whole. It's how we support folk to understand that when a family is regularly arriving at church at 10 past 10 for a service that starts at 10 o'clock, and there are folk that turn around and stare at them and tart and look at their watches and think, oh, can't they arrive at church on time in the morning? For them to understand that actually arriving at all is a massive win. And they've gone through lots to be able to get there at all, and rocking up at 10 past 10 is something to celebrate that they've made it in. And of course, if that child or young person that is a part of that family has one of those hidden differences, disabilities, diversities, then there's more education needed to help folk to understand that better and to be more supportive themselves.
I don't know why this came to mind. Maybe you can draw something out of this one. But I was thinking about smiling and frowning, just really, really basics. That if we smile, I'm told, I believe this to be true, if we smile, it's actually easier than frowning because we're using less muscles to smile than we do to frown. So frowning is actually more tiring to do. But it's so easy, isn't it, to make a judgment and think, oh, terrible mother, terrible father, haven't got the child under control, they're late to church. And we spot all the negatives. But wouldn't it be easy just to go and smile and say, good to see you?
It would. It would make such a difference, and it can be absolutely transforming. And I often talk about meerkats and lions. So imagine that somebody's arriving at church and they're late and with their family, or even a child or young person who's become overwhelmed in church and might be having what we might commonly know as a meltdown or something like that. And sometimes there'll be a forest of heads that shoot up and swivel round, a bit like meerkats, and stare and tart and comment, and they're harsh, unkind comments, and it's really making a difficult situation a lot worse. But there will also be some lions, and lions look after their pride. They take care of each other. They protect each other, and there'll be folk that get around that family and say, "Hey, let's welcome you and bring you in and look after you." Or, what does your child need right now to help to get through this meltdown they're having? And we need more lions in the world. I have a dream that one day every church will have a picture of a meerkat on the front door with a red line through the middle of it, a meerkat-free zone, and it will be a place where, everybody is accepted and loved and valued for who they are.
We either see the church as a place where we're supposed to be in a really good place. I haven't found one of those yet. Or we look at churches where we are all ill and stuck in that ill place. I've seen many of those, and that's not good. Or actually, it should be more like an A&E unit or ER unit in the US, where people arrive, we come broken. But actually, we should be finding healing. And if we're not even allowed through the door, I remember hearing Adrian Plass, I think it was, talking about the difference between a pub and a church. In a pub, you knock your drink over. Oh, I'm so sorry. Here's another one. You walk into the church and you sit in the wrong seat. And my goodness, you'd think you just committed the worst sin in the world. He does it a lot better, of course. But I think that does sum up part of the issue. I mean, having been in church ministry myself, I see some of the issue and the reason why we walk around church, because there's going to be a noise. Okay, we're going to move our heads to the noise. That's fine. But it's the next bit. Because they know they're being heard when they've got a problem and a child is kicking and screaming. They know that people can hear them. But what do you do after that noise makes your head turn? What's your next reaction? Because that's more important.
It is. And if the next reaction is love, if the next reaction is to be Jesus to that family, to that child or young person, then what better a place to do that in than church? That should be our default response when that happens. And sometimes it is. Sometimes it isn't, and I hear the good stories and I hear the horror stories. I hear the bad tales, but it should be that our response is to show the love of Jesus. Often that doesn't happen, and that's heartbreaking, and that's why I'm very busy doing what I do, and friends of mine are very busy doing the same thing, because there's a lot of work to do and a lot of churches to bring about change with, to create belonging and a loving, nurturing environment for everybody.
I want to just came to mind. If I was going to do a school report on any church having never walked in it and it was about additional needs, I would say must try harder, irrespective of the church, whether they're doing lots or nothing. Must try harder, because we really should.
Absolutely. Yeah, we really should. And I think if we were to evaluate churches, in that way, if we sort of think about it from at the school's point of view, there would definitely be quite a lot of churches that I could think of that would be under special measures if we applied that Ofsted ruling. And there are a few that we would give excellent to as well, and the gradings in between. But definitely, yeah, there's a broad spread. And but the thing is that those that do this well, those that would be graded as excellent if we did it that way, are thriving places. They're places where they see growth. They see, more and more families coming. They see the positive outworking of their response and their attitude to people bearing fruit. And we see the opposite of that, where there are churches that we might say, under special measures, where they don't show that love of Jesus to families, because what they see is those families vote with their feet and go somewhere else. And they tell their friends that, oh, you don't want to go there. We had a terrible experience. And so you see churches that shrink and become very insular and ineffective, because they're not showing the love of Jesus to people that walk through the door. And that's got to be the first thing that we do, is to represent our Lord and Saviour to the folk that come into His house, and to be Him for them.
Let's get back in time just a little bit. So, just give us a sort of outline of your own faith journey. You're doing this. You're talking about churches a lot, but and obviously Urban Saints. We can come to that another time. But what's your own story of faith growing up?
Oh gosh, so I was taken to church by my parents. So I grew up in a Christian family. I came to faith about 10 years old, and it was But by then, I'd been through Sunday school and all the stuff that anybody that age had been through. I thought I knew it all. I remember there was an annual exam that we used to do back in the day, and I think it was a Scripture Union exam or something. And one year I got 99% in this Scripture Union exam, and I was furious because I was absolutely certain that I got it all right. And there must have been a problem with the marking, and that arrogance that I had was ridiculous for a 10-year-old, really. And God really nailed me on it, and showed me that it wasn't about that. It was about how I lived my life, and living life with Him. And so that journey with Him started age 10, and has continued ever since. I met my good lady wife at a Christian camp. We were both tent leaders for the campers. Our eyes met across a campfire, and that was that. We've been at church all our lives, and working in church, doing children's work, youth work, leading and preaching and different things since then. And for the last 18 years, I've been in full-time ministry with Urban Saints, as we've mentioned. And for much of that, working in this area of additional needs, which is a particular passion for me, coming from two things, really. All that time doing children's and youth work, obviously bumped into loads of children and young people with additional needs along the way, and always wanted to make sure that they could be involved in everything that was going on, that they belonged and felt valued and loved. And then our second child, James, was born, and aged 2.5, was diagnosed as autistic and with learning difficulties. And then when he was about 15, epilepsy and social anxiety arrived. And there's other stuff that doesn't have a formal diagnosis, but that's going on with James as well. So for us as family, as church, and through the work I do, there's very much a story that brings all this together. It's almost like God had a plan.
As He often does. I was just reflecting on what I do with Pure Radio, ex-trucker. Drove abnormal loads of police escorts around the country, and that was quite good fun. And went on to sell cloth nappies, drove tipper trucks as well. There was a load of stuff, and you think, well, how does that get here? But invariably people say, yeah, but that thing you did then, look at what you're doing now. Like, I do lots of driving now. Well, as an ex-trucker who drove 10 hours a day, sometimes, okay, it's not a biggie, so there's lots of things that I guess you can call them all sorts of skills, but
Mm.
They carry forwards, and they help us to be prepared for what it is that God has asked us to do. And clearly for you, that's been your experience.
It absolutely has, and in my working career before I was at Urban Saints, I was doing things like running technical training teams for telecoms companies. Well, I do a lot of training today. It might not be about how mobile networks work, but the training skills that I developed in that time are really helpful now, as it helps me to communicate effectively during training programs and to write content that's meaningful and helpful for folk to understand how to support kids and young people with additional needs. So, yeah, you can look back and see how God led you into different places and to do different things. And it was all preparation for what He really wanted you to do when you were ready. And yeah, like I say, it's almost like He's got a plan, and yeah, when we're aligned with that plan and seeking Him in that, and saying, "Hey, what are we going to do today, Lord?" Then we're in that sweet spot where we love what we do. I love what I do, and I can tell you love what you do as well, and that's because we're where God wants us to be, doing what He wants us to do, and that's not a bad place to be.
It's a very good place to be. It's a very reassuring place to be, and sometimes it's quite a lonely place to be, but it's also a really good place to be. And I love how God can bring along people who can equip us and encourage us and challenge us. And iron sharpens iron is a beautiful piece of scripture. If you don't know that piece of scripture, it's not about taking two hammers and whacking them together. It's not. It's not about that. It's about that iron is the best thing to sharpen iron with. If you use something too soft, it'll ruin that. It's too hard, you'll ruin the thing. So you need stuff that's vaguely equivalent to work with each other. And I
Exactly.
love that. So let's just come back into the Additional Needs Alliance then. So you're talking about training. What do you actually do? What does the Additional Needs Alliance do? And I especially love that it began out of someone saying, "How do we do this? What's next?" Well,
Yeah.
what's next is this.
What's next is this. So yeah, it started off, and still its core purpose is to link people together, is to connect people together that are on a similar journey. And whether that's children's youth families workers, parents, carers, practitioners in different fields, we're all passionate about and journeying with and supporting children, young people, maybe young adults with additional needs. And so the primary thing about it is community, and it's about linking people together so they don't feel isolated. They don't feel they're the only ones. They don't think, "Oh, I've got this question and I've got nobody that I can ask to give me some help on this." But it's also a place where we can resource people, and so there's information, resources, tools that are available that folk can use to help them on that journey as well. And lots of people contribute those resources and make them available freely for other people to access and use as well. And and it's a place where people can also yeah, to seek sort of a bit of consultancy, a bit of, okay, we've got this specific need. We're working in this particular area with these particular children or young people, and we could just do with a bit of help. Could that be something that you could help us with? And often we can find somebody that can perhaps go along and help them with that. So it's very much supporting and resourcing people who are on that journey with children and young people with additional needs, and that's why it's a growing community, because people love it. They find it really helpful. They suggest that to their friends to come and join and to be a part of that journey as well. When I'm going around doing training, wearing my Urban Saints hat specifically for that, I'll talk a bit about the Additional Needs Alliance there as well, and I'll say, "Hey, come and be a part of what we're doing," and there'll usually be a little flurry of the requests that appear on my phone from people wanting to join the Additional Needs Alliance Facebook group. We're one of those groups where we ask a couple of questions of people before they join, because we don't want folk just joining so they can try and sell fake Rolex watches or something. We want them to join because this is something that's relevant for them. So we ask a couple of questions, and so my phone lights up often with a whole bunch of requests from people that want to be a part of that, and that's great. And I think, great, there's a load more people that are coming to join us on that journey. And so that little group of 30, if you can imagine a sort of metaphorical road, and we're walking down that road together, Started off with a little bunch of us of 30. Now it looks like we're going to watch a football match because there's thousands of us that are on that journey together, and we're all heading in the same direction. We may be at different points on that road. Some will have been on that journey for a long, long time and have lots of experience and lots that they can share. For others, this might be brand new for them. They may be somebody who is in children's work, and a child has arrived in their group with additional needs and they've no idea how to support them. Or maybe a parent who has just got a diagnosis for their child and really doesn't know what that means. But they will join a community that has lots of people that can help them with that and help them with the answers to the questions that they'll have, and can resource them to do that well. And so that's what we're about. And yeah, it's an absolute privilege to be to be guiding that and leading that over the years.
So just give us an example for people who are listening and thinking, okay, but what do you do? Just give us an example where someone's come and said, help. Let's just say a church or a children's work or what have you. What have you actually been able to do, I suppose, in actionable things that's really helped them to change how they're working?
Yeah. Okay. So one thing that often we recommend for churches to do, and a starting point often when we get a question from somebody who's new to the group, and they say, oh, we've got this particular scenario, can you help us? Yeah. First thing is always, ask the audience. So have you asked the family, for their input? What are the things that they suggest? Because often we can fall into the trap of trying to do inclusion unto people rather than with them. And so we'll think, oh yeah, we've got to come up with all the ideas and then put things in place, and then the family will sort of fit in with that, and we forget to actually ask them what might work for them. But then we can also broaden that out and say, okay, so folk, in the group here, we can see this particular scenario. What are you doing out there? And so some folk might say, well, here's some ideas that we've been working on, and that can feed into the conversation. One of the things that we'll commonly encourage churches to do is to have somebody in their team who is their inclusion champion, somebody who owns this within their setup. And that often we would encourage them to find somebody who has some first hand experience of additional needs disability themselves. So it might be somebody in their church congregation who's a disabled person themselves, or parent of a child with additional needs, and work with them to help them to then start to think about and look at what they do at church, and with the families that they're journeying with, identify what are the barriers that inadvertently we end up putting in place. What makes it hard for a family or a child or young person that's coming to this church to be able to engage with things? And broadly, that will break down into three areas. So there's the place itself. Can they get in? Can they move around? Is the disabled toilet used as a cleaning cupboard for all the loo rolls and everything else that goes in there? And then there's program barriers. Do we unexpectedly change things, or without warning invite somebody with additional needs to come up to the front for something, or just lots and lots of program barriers that we can put in place. And then there'll be people barriers too. If every church has a hugger, don't they? And often the hugger ends up on the welcoming team, because then they get to hug everybody when they arrive, which some people, that's really, really valuable, and they need that contact. For some people, and for some children, young people with additional needs, that can be their worst nightmare. And so helping churches to understand that, helping them to understand that if a child or young person isn't giving eye contact when they're talking to them, it's not necessarily that they're being rude. It might be that in order to focus on what you're saying, they can't also be looking at you and giving you eye contact. It's either or. And so, there are lots of things like that that we can help folk with to sort of broaden their understanding and to put a structure in place that helps them to keep a focus on this, and to sort of keep it on the radar, and help them to take this forward and grow it.
There was the hand in hand conference. There was one really amazing thing. I'm sitting in my car just before it starts on the Friday afternoon. Myself and my son in the car keep hearing this cheering, thinking, we have no clue what's going on, but okay, we're just going to go with that. We can't see anything. We're just in the car park. And as you're walking towards the doors of where the hand in hand conference was, there was a group of people outside. And I thought, interesting. But there was a lovely chap with a bowler hat who stood outside, and he said, how would you like to be greeted today? Just move this. There's like a circle thing with an arrow, and you can have a very quiet, or you can have a very exuberant, or somewhere in the middle. And so I thought, hey, look, in for a penny, in for a pound, let's go full on. And I had this cheer and all the rest of it. But it was the fact that if I wanted to, I could go very quiet, and then they've just welcomed me gently. And it is so important to know your audience. And I was thinking, how's this going to work? But actually, it was really lovely. And as we got through there, the doors are opened. And I shared this before in another interview, but it was a really good way of saying, how do you want to be welcomed? Yeah. Because we're all different. And, one day we might be excited. Next week, we've got a headache. Do you know what? I don't want you to shout and scream. I know I normally do. I'm fine. I'm not in any danger. I've just got a headache. I'm a bit tired.
Definitely. We're all different, and hand in hand. It was actually hand in hand conference that 12 years ago where the Additional Needs Alliance was born, so we've just celebrated our 12th birthday because hand in hand has just happened, and absolutely that welcome. We were very intentional about making sure that. For those that wanted that big exuberant welcome, that was there. For those that just wanted to quietly slip in, that's there too. And we're very much aware that can be different, as you said, from day to day, from person to person, but we can offer the range there. And people will value and love either of those or something in the middle, but they get that welcome that's appropriate and needed. In whatever form that takes when they arrive. And wouldn't it be great if every church did that? That would be lovely, and that would make a big difference, because that first that welcome, that first impression that people get when they arrive, that sense of going back to what we were talking about earlier, if they happen to it's a massive struggle, but they get there 10 minutes after the service has started, and they're shown love, and they're shown appreciation, and I know this morning must have been really hard, but well done for getting here. That means the world, and is a world apart from the stares and the tuts and the harsh comments. And so that welcome is so important, isn't it?
Getting to church on time is a great thing. But I know once or twice in my life, maybe, half a dozen times over the last 35 years, there have been times when I've gone to church deliberately late because I just didn't want to talk to anybody. I wanted to go to church. I wanted to do, maybe not even bother singing, just to be there for the prayers or something. I wanted to be in there. It's my family. But at the same time, I arrived late because I really didn't want the welcome. Exactly. Not because of who was there, not because I knew it was going to go. And I just wanted to go to church that week.
You just want to go to church and do it in your way, and and people do that, and similarly, people might slip away with 5 minutes to go before the end of the service for exactly the same reason, because they don't want to be caught up in all the, all right, let's all go and have a coffee and a conversation and all of that. Actually, for that person at that moment, what they want is just to slip back home, and that works for them. Next week they might stop for a coffee, but this week they'd rather not, and that should be absolutely fine too.
Yes, it should. I wish it was. It isn't always. It could be. But I do like your idea of the inclusive champion, somebody who actually looks out for people. And I guess a bit like as you're walking into the Hand in Hand conference in 2025, there was somebody outside who was doing that and saying, how would you like to be greeted today? Are you exuberant mode, excited, or are you more quiet and reflective? And let's welcome you in the way that you are.
And that's the same for children and young people when we're supporting them in our setting. We were talking earlier about some of the hidden areas of disability difference, diversity, and often it can be hard to know unless we're told whether a particular child or young person has some additional needs or not. So we just have to be understanding and supportive, whatever their particular needs are that particular day. And there could be a child who's rocked up that week who doesn't have any additional needs, but actually was up all night playing Fortnite, is really tired, didn't get breakfast. Mum and dad were having a bit of a scrap before they left for church, and he's feeling a bit fried. And yeah, just in that moment, needs a bit of support. And and we should be there to give that and make sure that he's loved and valued just the same as everybody else.
I saw a joke, which I don't think is that much of a joke in a sense, but a lot of people try and join a worship group so they can get away from the welcome team. They don't want to be greeted. And I think, do you know, in modern churches, it's good that we can welcome people, but we do need to be cautious how much of an over exuberant welcome we have.
Yes.
And it's one of the most critical points of any church is the first people on the door. It's not your website. Sorry, it's just not. It's the first person to meet at the door at the front of the church. That person is representing everything about your church, whether you want them to be, whether they're the right person. That is the first person that they see. And it's very hard to get a second first impression.
It is. And you know, and there are times when an overly exuberant welcome team can put people off to the extent that they don't come anymore. You know, they'll think, I just can't face being greeted by all of that. I just want to come in quietly and sit in church. And I've got to sort of run the gauntlet of this over exuberant, highly extrovert welcome team. And actually, yeah, I'd rather not. And so they end up going. And yeah, that's such a shame, isn't it? We need more introverts on our welcome team.
I think so.
To reflect everybody. Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you. Right. If people want to get in touch with you because they're thinking my child has now got to be in a wheelchair for the rest of their life, I don't know how to cope, or I've just started working for church and we've got a family and I think there's something, but I can't work it out. Will I offend them saying what's wrong with your daughter? How do we get the help we need and how do we reach out to you?
So lots of ways. They could join the Facebook group. And so if they search in Facebook for Additional Needs Alliance, they'll find us there and click the join button. It'll ask you a couple of simple questions like what your connection to additional needs is and have you read these rules, which are there for you to read. And then you'll be added in by one of us and you'll find that community there and get lots of support that way. The website is additionalneedsalliance.org.uk. You can find us there and there's lots of things that you can access and download and have a look at. You can connect directly with me via my Urban Saints email, which is marnold@urbansaints.org. And I'd love to hear from you and to be able to share with you ways that we can support you, provide training if that's appropriate, a bit of consultancy, whatever you need in order to get the support that you want. And if you want something just that's a bit different and helpful to read, you could have a look at my blog, which is the additionalneedsblogfather.com. And there you'll find some of my journey with my son James, but also lots of other ideas and thoughts and things to share that you might find helpful and interesting too.
Mark, thank you for sharing some of that. I loved how God brought us together fairly recently ahead of this, which was, you know, it's a very small world, the church world, and it's much bigger than we think, but it's also quite small as well, sometimes conversely, because we can meet people and think, oh, you're that person, which is kind of cool. Thank you for sharing with us. Additionalneedsalliance.org.
.uk.
.uk. We'll put that on the thing so I don't confuse everybody. Thank you, Mark, for your time today. And if you're stuck and wanting to know more, get in touch with Mark and he'll help you.
That'd be brilliant. Thanks, Andy. And great to connect with you today.